It's the third week of September 2025. I'm Dave. I'm here with Andrew, and you're listening to BV Weekly. This week, we're going to talk about 3 of this weekend's music festivals, the new Wednesday album, and more. And so it's actually our second episode of the week because we did one on Tuesday, the day the Coachella lineup was announced. But we have even more to talk about today. But before we do, we wanted to pay tribute to At the Gates vocalist Tomas Lindberg, who sadly passed away from cancer at age 52 earlier this week, which I can't help but also think what's been coming to my mind is this is just over 4 years after we lost fellow legendary Swedish death metal vocalist LG Petrov of Entombed to cancer. He was actually born the same year as Tomas, and I'm just like, I'm still not over that. And you know, I did search. There's an interview on Revolver from a few years ago when At the Gates put out their last album that where he talked about missing LG, saying like, you know, they've been buddies forever, and how he was, when he goes to shows, he can't help but notice LG is always not there now in the audience. I mean, yeah. So just huge loss to metal and music in general. They do, as they said in the statement of a month or two or however long that was ago when they first revealed that Tomas had cancer, they did say they do have a new album recorded though. So that's also coming. One slightly positive note in this.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear it because At the Gates, who broke up in the mid 90s but have been reunited for about I think 15 years or so. They've been putting out, they have like as many new records now as they did originally, I think, or maybe like one less. And they've all been really good. They've been genuinely a great reunion band. So I feel like I'm really looking forward to hearing the new music. And yeah, like you said, I mean, they're so influential, like again, like not just on metal. At the Gates are basically considered one of the pioneers of Swedish melodic death metal, along with bands like In Flames, and I mean, like Entombed, who you mentioned too, are like a little different, but kind of in that same overall realm. And it's expanded from that though, because when they had the whole sort of American metalcore boom in the late 90s, early 2000s, like huge bands like Killswitch Engage, and even like post-hardcore stuff like Thrice, and I mean, like pretty much like, I mean, any of that stuff popping off at that era, like Shadows Fall, like the list just goes on. It just, those bands all really date back to At the Gates. Their last record from 95, Slaughter of the Soul, is just a perfect album. I would say it's like probably in my top 10 metal albums of any metal subgenre. What Americans have called metalcore since the popularity of the genre in the early 2000s was pretty much a mix of American 90s metalcore and like At the Gates, pretty much. So it's like, it's just I mean, I would say probably even Lamb of God could be considered something that stems from At the Gates and Slaughter of the Soul. Like, it's just the amount of massive bands that owe so much debt to this band, some of whom I think we're going to talk about on this episode for other reasons. It's just, the list is endless. So they've always kind of been a band who, I don't think that they still haven't gotten their full due. I think they're still not as popular as so many of the bands who do what they did. And I think so often I find that fans of some of the bands they influence will then hear At the Gates and be like, oh, this really is all my favorite music. So I hope that, with people talking about him and At the Gates' influence this week, that they get even more new fans, because it's just like they deserve a bigger and bigger and bigger fan base, I think, and they just change much about popular music.
So pour one out for Tomas. Go listen to Slaughter of the Soul, even if you've never heard it, or even if you have. Yeah, I actually expect that a lot of the bands playing Louder Than Life this weekend will probably pay tribute on stage.
I think that's a good guess.
Yeah. And that, Louder Than Life, is one of the 3 festivals we're gonna talk about right now. So this weekend, starting like now, if you're listening to this, it's pretty much those 3 festivals have already begun. We've got Riot Fest happening in Chicago, Louder Than Life happening in Louisville, Kentucky, and Shaky Knees happening in Atlanta, Georgia. these are three kind of very different fests, but also have a lot of overlap. And Andrew and I would go to any one of them. So I don't know. I guess for the purposes of this podcast, we're going to play a little bit gun to your head. You're flying today. Which of these fests are you going to?
I mean, I would pick Riot Fest. I've said this before, I think, but like it's my favorite current American music festival. I think I've attended it more than any other festival, maybe Governor's Ball, but I feel like that gets a leg up for I live 15 minutes away from Governor's Ball by car. But as far as festivals you have to fly to, no question, Riot Fest I've been to the most. And this is its 20th anniversary edition, and I do feel like they are celebrating with a bang. They have 20 bands on the lineup playing albums in full. The headliners are like pretty much the best possible 3-band combination for representing the kind of 90s punk boom. It's Blink-182, Green Day, and Weezer playing the Blue Album in full. I mean, I don't think you could come up with more of a dream lineup, or at least I don't think you come up with a bigger lineup of bands like tied to the kind of 90s punk boom, which is of course not the only thing Riot Fest could do. And I mean, I'm trying to think of like what else it could be. Something that comes to mind is like, well, if you got Rancid playing and Out Come the Wolves, but they have had that before. But yeah, it's like the biggest combination. It's a perfect combination. It's also, they're all from California. I feel like Blink-182, Green Day, and Weezer have been grouped before in people's minds, so it's a good combo. Although the fest, like you said, is in Chicago, and so the headliners may all be California, but I think one thing that they, made a very clear point to do, given the anniversary, is like this lineup is got so mumuch for the real Chicago punk heads. Like there's so much Chicago punk history on it. You have Digits, you have Effigies playing 1984's Forever Grounded in full, Pegboy playing 1991's Strong Reaction in full, Screeching Weasel playing 91's My Brain Hurts, Smoking Popes playing 94's Born to Quit, Alkaline Trio playing 2000's Maybe I'll Catch Fire, and not quite Chicago, but still Midwest, you have Indianapolis hardcore legend Zero Boys playing 1982's Vicious Circle. And if these names don't mean anything to you, or maybe if like only Alkaline Trio and Smoking Popes or something, Screeching Weasel, like I think that's just because like, there's just like, for Chicago punk, this is like the most important stuff. Like, I mean, it's just like you don't get Rise Against, Alkaline Trio, Fall Out Boy, all these massive bands that have come out of the Chicago punk scene without the foundation laid by bands like Digits, Effigies, Pegboy. Naked Raygun, I think, are playing an after show. That's I mean, they're like a sort of a glaring omission on the lineup, but at least they're on an after show. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they just couldn't make the weekend work. Who knows? But in any case, it's sick to see Riot Fest putting on for their hometown scene like that. Something they've always done since the beginning, and really, really going out of their way this year. So that would be exciting. I'm really bummed to miss all that stuff, especially seeing it in Chicago. And so many good reunions this year. I mean, we were just talking about Rilo Kiley. What was it, last week's episode? Because they just played New York. Now they're in Chicago for Riot Fest. So, needless to say, if you listen to that episode, you know how excited we all are for Rilo Kiley. Shudder to Think is playing, which they also have reunion tour dates, including, I think, 2 sold out New York shows. And I mean, like, definitely underrated, but like one of the coolest, like 90s Discord kind of like art punk, post-hardcore bands.
Underrated, and I don't know if they're realistic or they're just modest, but the reunion, I don't know. On Brooklyn Vegan, we've been, at least in writing, and just as excited as Shudder to Think's return as we have been about many of the other bands who have reunited that we've been waiting for. But Shudder to Think, much smaller font on the Riot Fest lineup. Shudder to Think also playing a Riot Fest after show, only 300 cap venue. And then finally, Shudder to Think announces a New York City venue, a New York City show. We figure, come on, like a Bowery Ballroom, 500, 600 capacity place at least. They announced Mercury Lounge, one of the smallest venues in New York City. They did end up adding a second show after it sold out instantly, but still, it's been kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I can't say I'm surprised. Like, they do strike me as more like cult heroes than like a popular band. they are so important and so cool and not really like anything else. And so I don't know. I like, as with At the Gates, I hope that new audiences figure out how cool this is. So if you're going to Riot Fest and you're listening to this and you don't know who Shudder to Think is, don't miss them. Texas is the reason. We've talked about a few times. They're doing the reunion this year. They actually just started the reunion at Crossroads in New Jersey, and then they just finally added a hometown New York show to the tour, which is at Webster Hall. So bigger than where Shudder to Think is playing.
Much bigger. And they're Shudder to Think also, Texas is the reason, also playing a Riot Fest after show. It's not sold out, by the way.
It's Sam I Am, right?
So, and with Sam I Am.
Yeah, who are playing 2000s Astray at the festival, but who all, like Texas, are one of the first like 90s sort of second wave emo bands. So that's a great double bill.
Yeah, and you can actually still get tickets to their after show.
Yeah, and then you should. I think again, if you've heard episodes of the podcast already, it goes without saying how excited for Texas I am, but just their album holds up so well, the one album they put out in the 90s, and it's just like it's influenced so much emo and post-hardcore, and even like 30 years later it still sounds right up there with the bands that have taken that influence to new places. And then one more reunion band that I would be stoked to see is Dancehall Crashers, the ska punk veterans. They, I think, just played Warped Tour and now doing Riot Fest. Don't have a lot of shows lined up, but there's Riot Fest has always been a supporter of the ska scene, even when it was like the least cool thing to support. So Dancehall Crashers, one of the best 90s ska punk bands in my opinion, and I'm not going to see them, but if they add New York or something, I would like to see them. Meanwhile, I mean, just so many reasons I want to go. Like I said, there's 20 album plays, and I mean, just to mention a few that stand out to me is like Bad Religion. I think if you are a Riot Fest regular, you've probably seen them at Riot Fest more than once. They're obviously just like one of the most sort of just like trademark to Riot Fest type bands, but so maybe it seems too obvious to mention them, but always put on one of the best live shows. They're playing Suffer in full. I mean, you can't like Suffer just if the headliners all came from the 90s sort of punk boom, Suffer like invented the 90s punk boom. So like that'll be sick. And then the Pogues, who just played New York without singer Shane MacGowan, who sadly passed away, but they've sort of been doing this tour like in tribute to him. They have some guests helping out. They have other members of the band singing. And a Bill from BV just went to the Terminal 5 show, and he said he's really glad he went. They're playing Rum Sodomy and the Lash in full at Riot Fest. That's going to be awesome. Really stands out to me, they have Helmet playing Betty in full, which I think, unlike Bad Religion, I feel Helmet are like they're not as maybe they're less slightly obvious to the typical Riot Fest crowd. So I hope that they have a good crowd, and they should, and it's going to be great. And yeah, I don't know. There's just so much else. I mean, there's bands I love like Touche Amore, Military Gun, Superchunk, Knocked Loose, The Wonder Years, Idols, Jawbreaker. Like, I mean, it's a lot
Weird
of
Al Yankovic. Hello.
Yeah.
Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah. There's, Riot Fest always has like kind of a silly and humor, a comedy adjacent element. So Weird Al will be right in his.
If we're talking value here, I don't know what the ticket price is at Riot Fest, but obviously you could see a lot more bands at any festival for the price than going individually. But let's give some Weird Al some credit here. The man just headlined Madison Square Garden a few months ago, and I was last minute like, maybe I'm going to go to this. The tickets were very expensive. Like I could I could not find a ticket for Madison Square Garden that was, less than many $100s. So I was a little surprised. For all I knew, they would be like $20. But yeah, no, Weird Al, shout out Weird Al. That's some value on Riot Fest. Right?
Yeah, and I mean, Blink-182 and Green Day alone are just consistently stadium bands at this point. Yeah. And a ticket to see either of them individually is as much or more than a ticket to Riot Fest. Especially, I think, if you were to see like floor tickets or field ticket, whatever they're called, for one of those bands, I think you could actually pay more than a full 3-day pass to Riot Fest. And if you play your cards right, you can be way closer at Riot Fest. I mean, I saw Blink-182 headline Riot Fest, and one of the things I like about Riot Fest is they have the two main stages like right next to each other, and bands like go back and forth with very little changeover. So you could basically watch one band from the other stage and still see and hear perfectly, which helps you get closer. So like I whoever went on before Blink-182, I can't remember. I just went to the main stage for their whole set, and Blink-182 comes on, and I'm like 20 feet back. I mean, there's what it would cost to be 20 feet back from Blink-182 at a stadium, I think is more than a three-day pass to Riot Fest. Meanwhile, I just saw Blink-182 this past weekend at See Here Now, and I was like thousands of feet back. I think it was like really, I just, I did not get the opportunity to camp out and also see something else at the same time. So I watched mainly from the screen. And then if I got on my tippy toes, I could sort of notice these little Tom, Mark, and Travis ants in the distance. But
while barefoot in the sand.
Yes,
right?
I was barefoot in the sand. My shoes were off, and I was barefoot in the sand with the ocean right next to me, because I was all the way on the right where they put up a fence blocking the ocean, which is smart so no one drowns.
This is a festival that
Asbury
happened
Park
last weekend here, close to here in New Jersey.
Yeah,
New Jersey Shore, Asbury Park. Yeah.
I very ambitiously was at my cousin's wedding on Saturday in Virginia, and then was driving back to New York Sunday morning, and we basically stopped off in Asbury Park for as much of See Here Now as we could see. I mean, because it was such a long drive, we got there around 5 o'clock. I was bummed because we missed Mannequin Pussy, and then we still had like an hour and a half drive back to Queens where I live. So we left during Blink's set. I didn't see their full set. But as discussed on a previous episode of this podcast, they have been sticking to the same set list. They've been breaking out some songs they haven't played in a while. I got to see them play online songs, which they hadn't before this tour played since 2001. And I'm set. I'm all happy now. Before I move on, I do one last Riot Fest thing I do want to shout out is it is a chance to see Stiff Little Fingers, which one of my favorite parts about Riot Fest is that they always get these punk legends who are relatively rare. Like, there's also a lot of veteran punk bands playing that play all the time, but like they tend to get these legendary veteran punk bands that you don't get a lot of chances to see. And I've never seen Stiff Little Fingers. Maybe if you have, you're listening, but I'm excited they're playing. If I was going, I would not miss them. Meanwhile, like I said, I would choose Riot Fest, but it's a pretty close second for me, Shaky Knees, because if I I think Blink-182, Green Day, and Weezer playing Blue Album, that's like, that feels to me like almost like about as big as a Riot Fest lineup could be. But the Shaky Knees headliners are Blink, My Chemical Romance, and Deftones, which kind of also could be a Riot Fest combination and would be one of the biggest things. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm like, that's pretty, like, Shaky Knees is a multi-genre festival. Riot Fest is punk-centric. So there's been years where the headliners would be much different. But to have these three veteran rock bands who all in their own way feel so relevant in 2025 that I'm not going to name names, but there are a lot of festivals that book a lot of veteran rock bands. And it just feels to me like, oh my God, like, you have to have newer artists headline. It just feels like you're just banking on nostalgia until the end of time. And one day these bands won't be available anymore and you're not going to have new headliners. But I feel like Deftones, My Chem, and Blink are all relevant in the current day in their own ways. And so I think that's a really, really awesome combination. And there's other cool stuff. I mean, there's actually, like, I think it might be the same Ultimate owner, but there's a lot of the same stuff that was at See Here Now, like Public Enemy, who I saw, and they brought out DMC in See Here Now. They did Tricky and Walk This Way together.
I mean, like See Her Now, Shaky Knees also has Lenny Kravitz. Did you have?
Exactly. And I happened to see his set.
You did? Wait, actually?
Yeah, I watched it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
All of it?
Yes.
How was that?
Well, no comment. TV on the radio, all played both. I saw one of their songs at See Her Now because they were on at the exact same time as Hot Mulligan, and I chose Hot Mulligan, who are also playing Coachella. Johnny Marr, The Smiths, Spoon, who played at the same time as Mannequin Pussy at See Here Now, is on this one. Idols, who also play Riot Fest. Scal, who should be playing Riot Fest. Alabama Shakes, who I didn't see because they were day one of See Here Now. They're on this one. It's like a reunion for them. The new song is cool. Vampire Weekend, obviously, like great band. Fleshwater, who's also playing Coachella. The All American Rejects, who you might not expect to hear on this podcast, but who we just because I did that recent video series of emo albums turning 20, I've kind of been on an All American Rejects kick, and they play the same day as MCR, so I'm sure that's a lot of crossover there. Anyway, Devo is playing. They're also on Coachella. Wet Leg, who just played New York last night. It's a cool lineup. I have to say, like, for a multi-genre, smaller scale, not major city festival, I think that Shaky Knees is punching above their weight class this year. So I do have to give a shout out, even though gun to my head, Riot Fest wins. What about you? What festival would you pick this weekend?
So first of all, the biggest excitement for any fest for me always comes on the day they announce, because you have like the instant, especially if they're not near you, and it's going to be a challenge to get to, and you know that you never end up going to these fests across the country. But when it's announced, you have like this instant FOMO. Oh my God, I definitely need to be at this. I feel that way about Riot Fest pretty much every year. I feel that way about Riot Fest this year. I'm sad to miss it. As what's the right word? As a history buff as well, I also love this opportunity that Riot Fest is giving this year, maybe every year, of seeing all these classic albums in full, seeing this Chicago punk history, this you Stiff Little Fingers, like all this stuff is exciting to me at Riot Fest. Shaky Knees, I wouldn't pass up an opportunity to go to this fest any day of the week. However, gun to my head, my winner this weekend, I guess as this show's resident biggest metalhead, I'm going Louder Than Life. So first of all, Louder Than Life, this is a Danny Wimmer festival. Danny Wimmer has a series of festivals around the country in locations that not a lot of other festivals are in. That's my high level, like not the usual. He has a festival in Ohio. This one is in Louisville, Kentucky, which, by the way, also has an amazing hardcore festival, LDB, which some of the same bands play LDB and Louder Than Life. And these Danny Wimmer festivals are massive. They have many stages. They have way more bands than something like Shaky Knees, but it all leans metal ultimately. There's a lot of hardcore on there. There's a lot of different genres of metal. Maybe there's some punk. Well, there is some punk, but they're like metal fests. But
it's like, I think worth saying it's like the
heavy music fests.
Like radio friendly metal. It's not like Maryland Death Fest.
Right.
Like it's a lot of bands who are very popular, who have hit songs.
Bands you've heard of.
Yeah.
And an immediate example of that is it actually shares a headliner with Shaky Knees. Deftones will be playing both Louder Than Life and Shaky Knees this weekend. Right there, Deftones, a band I very, very much want to see. The fact that I don't need to go to Shaky Knees and I can still catch them on Louder Than Life, but also see Slayer on Louder Than Life. Right there is my first of many, many reasons why I'm choosing Louder Than Life. Also, some crossover with Shaky Knees and Louder Than Life is Deaf Heaven Jr., and by that I mean Fleshwater, also playing both fests.
Oh, man.
No, I didn't mean that as a diss.
I know. It's just...
So I think, and Riot Fest and Louder Than Life, I think they may also have, most notably one of the bands I want to see on both fests, Knocked Loose. Yeah. So Knocked Loose.
Maybe worth mentioning that Slayer's final Chicago show was Riot Fest 2019, which I was at. So yeah, that's, I think if this is Louisville, is this like their first Midwest show since Riot Fest 2019? That might be true.
Slayer?
Yeah.
Yeah, wait, well, they canceled.
No, did they play Riot Fest when they came back? Now I can't.
They did. I don't remember the details, but they were supposed to play Louisville. They got rained out. When they came back, they announced Riot Fest and Louder Than Life.
Okay, so they played Riot Fest to break up and also to return. Right. Yeah. So there you go.
And then Louder Than Life didn't happen. So maybe this year's the makeup show.
Yes, I think that's because I think it was because you mentioned Danny Wimmer has multiple festivals. I think they were playing Aftershock in Sacramento, and they allowed Louder Than Life ticket holders to go to Aftershock for free to see Slayer. But then they were like, we're also going to book them on Louder Than Life again next year if you can't make the trip.
Yeah. So
Meanwhile,
it maybe just got rained out, right? I don't know.
with something like that, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, keep going.
All right. Anyway, Louder Than Life, also a big kind of heavy shoegaze contingent with and classic rock. You've got Failure, who influenced Deftones on there. You've got Super Heaven, who are kind of doing that thing now. Quantic, who we talked about on a previous episode in the context of Deftones, one of the newer Deftones influenced shoegaze bands as well on there with Fleshwater. They're all on the same stage, kind of alt rock and metal giants who we've heard on the radio much in the early 2000s. A Perfect Circle, which is a super group featuring Maynard from Tool and James from Smashing Pumpkins and others. They're on there.
Now, do you think there's a chance that Deftones will do Passenger with Maynard if he's on right before their set?
Now that you mention it, sure.
That would be, if that happens, I'm going to have even more FOMO for not going to Louder Than Life.
And yeah, I mean, the list goes on why Louder Than Life is the festival that I'm choosing. Acid Bath, one of this year's biggest metal reunions, a band nobody expected. Sludge legends from New Orleans, nobody expected to be as big as they were, and they came back. I've mentioned this on previous episodes too. When I went to one of their 2 New York City shows, every giant show they announced sells out quickly. Also, I think actually the Wimmerfests were the first shows they announced. It was Louder Than Life and all these Wimmerfests.
Wasn't Sick New World their first announcement? Which is actually not a Wimmerfest, but booked the same.
Okay, details. But yes,
hey, just it might
credit
have been where it's due to Sick New World.
It might have been Sick New World. I also remember that it was like they were announcing on all these Wimmerfests. Did Sick New World happen?
Yeah, right. Wait, I don't know. It's hard to keep track. Go on.
Also in that world, massive in the sludge metal, Down, which of course is Phil Anselmo from Pantera with Kirk from Crowbar and other New Orleans music titans. So the list goes on. I said Knock Loose already, but in that kind of hardcore giant category, you also have Hatebreed and Drain. We have Dillinger Escape Plan, Glassjaw. The list of bands that I've like gone out of my way to see just them when they came back, like Dillinger Escape Plan, Acid Bath, and so on, is like they're all here on this one lineup. In death metal, you have legends like Carcass and Cannibal Corpse, and some of my newer favorite bands like Sanguisugabogg, Fulci, and the kind of viral right now, Peeling Flesh. Peeling Flesh just played, I think, Sound and Fury in LA, as did Big Ass Truck. There's kind of this trend right now of these, like, I don't know if these bands started as jokes or what, but they're being taken seriously and getting very big. And on Louder Than Life, you have both Big Ass Truck and Silly Goose on the lineup. I'm always down to see what's going on there. You have in the classic thrash department, Testament, Exodus, Cavalero, which is, Sepultura spinoff.
And they're playing Chaos AD.
Yeah, so they're actually Sepultura.
May as well be Sepultura.
It is Sepultura.
Yeah.
You've got Lamb of God. You have Mudvayne, who last week we learned from you are a band we like now. Bands that I've never seen Dream Theater live, but hey, as a metal fan, I'm gonna take the opportunity to go see Dream Theater. Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden, heavy metal legends, except there's like a Insane Clown Posse is on there along with Cypress Hill and Tech Nine. Municipal Waste, Dying Wish, Spirit World, Rob Zombie, and then I don't know, Sleep Token, not our band, but I'm always curious to see what the hype is about. I might check them out at this fest. So I think I've listed enough reasons why Louder Than Life is ultimately the festival I'm going to go to this weekend.
Like we said, I wish I could be at all 3 of these. Sadly, I'll just be at none. I also wish that I could. I was trying to take the trip to either Philly or Boston to see Turnstile, Mannequin Pussy, Speed, and Jane Remover this weekend, and it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. I really wanted to do that. No New York date on the tour, but I will be seeing no live music this weekend instead.
All right, and enough about fests. Time to talk new albums. Yes.
Yeah, let's do it.
I think, well, I'll let you go.
So, I hope we don't have another Erykah Badu situation here, but one of the albums I've been waiting years for that I would love to talk about, we're going to have to wait until next week because it comes out. We're recording on Thursday. It comes out at midnight. I haven't been able to hear it. And I'm talking about Cardi B's new album, Am I the Drama, which is her first album since Invasion of Privacy, which came out 7 years ago, which is nuts. And it's just taken her so long, but I have nothing to say because I haven't heard it, and I hope we can talk about it next week. But in addition to it being out, she is really making a comeback because she announced what is really her first full-scale headlining tour ever. She technically toured in 2019, but it was barely a tour. She mainly would do festivals, one-offs. So yeah, she's really going for it. And this week she revealed she's pregnant with her 4th child. So it's been a lot of Cardi B, but yeah, who knows? I'm going to have capital T thoughts on this album when I hear it, so we might talk about this one next week. But as for an album that I have not been waiting years for, but it's definitely my most anticipated album of the entire, I guess it's not fall yet, but the entire remainder, the last quarter or so of 2025, the album that we've definitely mentioned on multiple episodes. We've talked about singles, and that is Bleeds by Wednesday, which is finally here. One of the best albums of the year. Just saying it now, no hesitation saying that. How do we begin? I mean, it's as we've said, there is sort of this indie country boom going on. This kind of combination of like alt country and kind of like traditional indie rock. And Wednesday have been at the forefront of that. And Bleeds is it's their best album yet, and it's a perfect example of why they have been at the forefront of this. Wednesday are from Asheville, North Carolina. They for many years members of the band, including singer Carly Hartzman and guitar player MJ Lenderman, whose own career is also at the forefront of all this, have lived on this sort of like compound in Asheville called Haw Creek, which actually the property owner, Gary King, passed away in 2022. And since then, the land has been, if it hasn't been demolished already, it's been agreed. They've agreed to demolish it, the city of Asheville, and they're replacing it with like new housing. But that whole sort of like compound has been this home for these musicians. And so it's sort of like become shorthand for this new sound. And Carly from Wednesday calls this record like the essential Wednesday Haw Creek rock album, or Wednesday Creek rock, I think. And it just feels like it walks the walk. Like it does feel like the essential Wednesday record. It has everything you want from this band. It feels like everything they've been working towards since day one. And they have a lot of other great records too. I mean, again, if you've been listening to us talk throughout the year at all, I probably don't need to say any more about Elderberry Wine. One of the best songs of the year. You might call it Song of the Summer. Stereo Gum's readers voted that it was. I don't think I can think of something that I'd rather put. And it is Wednesday at their most overtly country. And there's a couple other songs in this record that are like that, including a reworking of Fish Pepsi, which had come out on a Wednesday MJ Lenderman collab EP a few years ago. And the new version is like progressive bluegrass. And there's an ode. There's an ode to Gary King, their former property owner, who is they also describe as like a friend, father figure, mentor. Last track on the record called Gary's 2. It's also very country-ish, twangy pedal steel. But meanwhile, on the
Gary 1 was on a previous album.
Yes. This is the second in the Gary's series. But meanwhile, on the total other side of that spectrum there's a song which is like basically screamo. And I think it should not be taken for granted in 2025 to have an A-list indie rock band totally in touch with indie rock's roots in hardcore like that. I mean, it just feels like, I don't know. It's like, I don't want to have a huge tangent here, but you could have a debate about what exactly indie rock means. But I think, like for a long time, a lot of music that was being called indie rock was so far removed from like the roots of indie rock as sort of an offshoot of hardcore and post-hardcore. But Wednesday are like not only in touch with like 90s indie rock, but they're also in touch with like the, where it came from. So it's like, I think it's really cool.
There was recently here in New York City at Nightclub 101, there was kind of like an invite only intimate Wednesday album preview event that I was lucky enough to get to go to, and Carly played a few songs from the album solo after they played the whole album in full. And she did play Elderberry Wine, and she also played one of the Screamy songs. And I mean, it's definitely highlighting the show. The crowd reaction to the Screamy song was what you expect, gets everyone really worked up. And afterwards, she did a live interview at on stage at the show, answered questions about the album. And she actually said that Elderberry Wine has been the hardest song for her to perform live because it's she really needs to know how to sing that one, and so she feels very vulnerable on stage. She can't hide it. And she said like the Screamy stuff's actually been her favorite thing to perform for the opposite reason. And but kind of even more exciting to me, she said she's thinking about the next Wednesday album possibly going a lot more in that Screamy direction. So stay tuned for that.
I would definitely love to hear that. I mean, it's interesting how like I mean, we've talked about this before too, but like Foxing made that like straight up Screamo album, and or almost. No, I don't want to say straight up, but a very heavily Screamo. And it was like they had also just kind of talked about, like they had teased in interviews like we might go full Slipknot on an album, and then like it happened and it was amazing. And that doesn't sound like Slipknot, but you know. So yeah, I think I could, if Wednesday kind of like do a similar thing, that'd be really cool. But most of Bleeds is sort of in the middle of those two extremes, which is like, again, it's a lot of traditional indie rock things at once. There's grunge, shoegaze, sort of like a merged Matador style 90s indie thing going on. And again, alt country, southern rock. And yeah, I mean, they've got thick fuzz coated riffs, the best melodies of Wednesday's career, really vivid lyrics from Carly. I mean, yeah,
those riffs played by MJ Lenderman.
Yes. And Carly. They're both.
And Carly.
Yes.
Right. But MJ is not touring with the band anymore.
No, but he's still on the album.
Schedule. Yeah.
But yeah, and they, as we mentioned last week, I mean, they're on Coachella. Like they're one of the very few sort of like undeniably indie rock bands on the lineup. And they're on Best Friends Forever in October, where I bet the Screamo song will really pop off because it's like heavily an emo festival.
True.
But yeah, I mean, that's number one for me this week. And then there's a lot of other cool stuff. Joan Shelley is just one of the best modern sort of like, she does like 60s, 70s style folk rock, and she does it today. And it's just like some of the most genuine sounding like interpretations of what it sounded like in that era. And it's her 10th album, and everyone is amazing. No exception. Are you ready for the worst pun of all time?
Go for it.
I may not be able yet to talk about Cardi B, but I can talk about Cardi X.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, Cardi X put out LSD, which is their first album in 26 years, and also it's their first since band leader Tim Smith passed away in 2020, so 5 years ago. And if you don't know who Cardiacs are, you're probably not alone. Even more so than At the Gates and Shudder to Think. Maybe not more than Shudder to Think, but I think that they're like a your favorite band's favorite band kind of thing, and that especially if your favorite band is Faith No More or Radiohead or Blur, Napalm Death, Voivod, Porcupine Tree. These are just some of the massive bands that Cardiacs have influenced with their extremely weird yet somehow catchy sound. And this album was started before Tim passed, but a lot of it was completed after he passed by his brother Jim Smith, who is the only other founding member in the band besides Tim at this point. And everybody else on it, except the drummer, has really not been in the band for very long. Well, there are some other people who have been in the band's orbit for a while, but it's a lot of people on this record that were not on like the classic albums. And it sounds remarkably like those classic albums. So I don't know how they did it, but they did it. It's really cool. Trash, who are like this kind of rising Midwest style emo band. It's been a really good month for Midwest emo, with not just the return of Algernon Cadwallader, but these great newer bands like Saturdays at Your Place and Kerosene Heights, and Trash, who are actually about to tour this fall with Kerosene Heights. Great record.
Have no vowels in their name, by.
Yes, it's all caps TRSH. Also a little bit of fifth wave emo at Riot Fest. Harrison Gordon are on at like 12:30, I think day one. So if you manage to hear this before they go and you're like, should I get there? Yes. Um, Def Club, which is a supergroup led by Justin Pearson of The Locust, Retox, Swing Kids, Dead Cross. Great new record out called We Demand a Permanent State of Happiness. There's also 4 EPs I like a lot this week, all of which are somewhat in like the hardcore and punk realm. Um, Secret World, which is an Australian band, members of Speed, Downside, others. This is like them doing sort of like the kind of hardcore alt rock crossover thing. Like they're touring North America with High Vis and Australia with Scal, which should give you an idea of where they land. And it's so good if you like that kind of stuff. If you like Military Gun, Drug Church, Angel Dust, Turnstile, so good. But also like I don't know, I get like a Gin Blossoms vibe too. So even if you're like, oh my God, enough with this like Turnstile stuff, but you're like, I like Gin Blossoms, Secret World. Public Opinion, who's speaking of Drug Church's Patrick Kinlan is on it. And they are close collaborators of Military Gun and touring with them soon. Their new EP, Perpetual Motion Machine, which is their first for Side One Dummies, super catchy. I think it's their best stuff yet. And then on sort of a different side of that spectrum is the new EP from Many Eyes, which is Keith Buckley, the singer of Every Time I Die. Many Eyes put out their first record last year, and it was sort of like half hardcore, half grunge. And this new EP is like all hardcore, very sick. And then Duck Duck Goose, who are like this annoying, chaotic, like mathcore, sasscore band who kind of like could have been a relic of the MySpace era. And I say annoying as a compliment. Justin Pearson, actually, of Def Club, coined annoying as a compliment to describe this kind of music. It's everything's connected. Duck Duck Goose, or like influential on like the sort of rise of like Callous Cowboys, For Your Health, See You Space Cowboy, that kind of stuff. And they're back with their first EP, first release. It's an EP, a first release in 15 years, and it's really, really good.
Just officially in acknowledging that we have now mentioned Silly Goose and Duck Duck Goose on the same episode. Go on.
Same brain, because I had the thought when you were talking about Silly Goose before. So also, on our other episode this week, we were talking about 9 Inch Noise being one of the highlights of the Coachella lineup, which, again, we are kind of assuming, feels like an educated guess, but we're kind of assuming is a full set from 9 Inch Nails and Boys Noise. And 9 Inch Nails have also put out their soundtrack for the new Tron movie this week. It's the first soundtrack credited to 9 Inch Nails, not credited to Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. And it has 5 new songs along with the electronic score. And obviously, I mean, I say obvious, but like, the sort of Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross scores have been incredible, like almost every time. I mean, maybe every time. And so to get that plus 5 new full songs, one of which we saw them play at their recent Barclays Center show, that'll be very cool. Also, Nation of Language, this synth pop band, it's their 4th album and first for Sub Pop, but apparently I say apparently because I'm quoting Bill here, it's less overtly synth pop than previous albums, but more shoegazy elements.
Which is perfect because one of their openers on this tour that they're starting or are already on is actually Greet Death, which
oh yeah, right. We were
talking about was like a kind of an interesting pairing. Greet Death being a shoegazy indie rock band whose album of this year is one of my favorites, very high on my list. And so I'm actually going to go see Nation of Language, hopefully, because it's actually Greet Death's like only upcoming New York City show at the moment.
Nice. Yeah, I probably won't be there, but I'm gonna be bummed I missed it. I can tell. Also, Kieran Hebden, who you may know as Fortet, has a collaborative album with William Tyler. It's called 41 Longfield Street, late 80s, and it's an ethereal collaboration and very ambient, including a 10-minute cover of Lyle Lovett's If I Had a Boat.
And this is another one with a tie to one of my favorite albums of this year. William Tyler also put out the very ambient Time Indefinite back in April, which is an album I also love, and I urge people to go check out. William Tyler, known for his guitar playing, is a very prolific artist, so there's a lot of albums to check out. But this makes 2 this year, both that people are calling ambient, then both very worth going to listen to.
And then just one more that we'll mention is the 13th album from the Divine Comedy. And for more on all of these records. We have reviews in our notable releases in Indie Basement columns. As always, the links for those columns are in the description of the episode, so find more there. Meanwhile, some new songs out this week.
Speaking of My Chemical Romance.
Yeah, Gerard Way, My Chemical Romance. Everyone's still kind of wondering, are they going to do a new record? Meanwhile, Gerard Way has a new band with members of the Interrupters called the Mock-Ups. It's kind of like a little garage punky, like kind of more similar to his solo record that he did. It's cool. It's
Is
definitely
this out of nowhere? Did you see this coming? Like,
no,
what?
I mean, I did not see it coming. I mean, it's not the members of the Interrupters are sort of like frequently surrounded, like they kind of like are close affiliates of like the biggest punk bands that exist, you know, like Green Day and Rancid, and there might even be like, I think there's like a Mark Hoppus Blink-182 tie in there also. So yeah, it's not crazy that they're doing something with Gerard Way, but I wasn't expecting. It's not ska though, I should say that, but no, Gerard Way, as far as I know, has not openly embraced ska the way Fall Out Boy's Patrick Stump has. Nothing, but yeah, he was on a ska song this year with the ska band Catbite, and actually this week he showed off his hardcore roots and Chicago roots by screaming on stage with Weekend Nachos, Chicago power violence band. So yeah, I don't know, the two singers of the two biggest emo bands of the 2000s are doing some interesting stuff right now.
And speaking of completely unexpected collaborations,
Speaking of Faith No More, also.
Oh, right. Who?
They hugely Cardiacs are a big influence on Faith No More.
Right. This week, a song that hit us completely by surprise is from a new collaborative album of Mike Patton from Faith No More and Mr. Bungle and many other projects, and the Avett Brothers, who folk rock, is it right to say mainstream leaning poppy folk band, the Avett Brothers?
I mean, like in between mainstream and indie, I guess.
The Avett Brothers, not really a band kind of that we think about. Mike Patton is somebody we think about a lot, or as much as we can. And this, to me, came out of nowhere for sure. And they have a whole album together. The first song came out. I like it.
Yeah. Where does it fit on the stomp clap discourse conversation?
The Avett Brothers for sure. I know fit into that conversation. It fits the Lord Huron narrative that you've got going a little bit.
And what narrative is that for those who don't know already?
That some may think of Lord Huron as this kind of stomp clap / Lumineers adjacent band that are apparently big enough to headline Madison Square Garden, at least in part to one big hit they had. Is that right?
Yeah, who are making the song that got especially big because it was on that Netflix show.
Right. And so, but you're often making the case that this is a band that is actually really good and psychedelic and folky, worth hearing. And it's basically the vibe I'm getting from this Mike Patton and Avett Brothers collab here.
I mean, I have honestly nothing but respect for the Avett Brothers. I don't necessarily listen to them a lot, but I see them as a talented band and not like they do nothing to offend my sensibilities.
So we're gonna have to do a deep dive on the Avett Brothers soon. Reevaluation.
I guess so. I mean, I'm curious about this record for sure. It's interesting.
You just said that Fall Out Boy's frontman came out with Weekend Nachos, which you see as kind of, making Fall Out Boy cooler than Fall Out Boy already was.
Well, I wouldn't know. That's not exact. Fall Out Boy's hardcore cred is well documented. That's not a new development. I think it's cool that he's still doing it despite being so famous all these years later. But Fall Out. I mean, Andy Hurley, their drummer, is an active member of Race Trader and Sect. Like, and then they came out of the hardcore scene. Those are not. That's not news. The fact that they stick by it is what makes them continuously cool, though, I think.
All right. Well, do the Avett Brothers suddenly have alternative metal and new metal cred, or?
I'm not equipped to answer that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I read that they were saying like, Faith No More was a big influence on them, which is not surprising at all. I mean, just given like
Oh,
their
that's
age.
interesting. And, Mike Patton is no stranger to collaborating. This is a guy who, despite being the singer of one of the biggest 90s bands in
Two of the
existence,
biggest 90s bands.
two of the biggest 90s bands, has still, well, I guess I didn't consider like Mr. Bungle, Faith No More, huge. But yeah,
That makes sense.
but he's gone on to be like that guy who just is putting out these weird collab albums, experimental
Yeah.
album after experimental album, and then playing those things in like really small clubs, kind of like how Thurston Moore always shows up in small clubs doing weird experimental
Yeah. And
guitar
Mike
things
Patton's done plenty of music that is not remotely metal.
or remotely popular.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't even I feel like a lot of Faith No More and Mr. Bungle is not remotely metal.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe this might be the most high profile thing Mike Patton has done in a second.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing.
We need to fact check that.
Yeah. He had done, they did the Mr. Bungle like re recorded thrash album, which was sick, but probably not super popular. And then he did Dead Cross with the aforementioned Justin Pearson, but also sick, not super popular. I bet an album with the Avett Brothers, who I probably also a Madison Square Garden headlining band. I've been fact checked that, but I think so. Yeah, this could be like potentially his like actually most popular thing in a minute.
What else do we have?
Now for some actual real, definitely no argument about it metal. Lamp of Murmuur, who I think we both agree are one of the best newer US black metal bands, who we're recording this on Thursday. So tonight, but if you're listening on Friday, last night, just began a tour with Black Braid, who are also one of the best current newer US black metal bands, and who we talked about a few episodes ago when they released their new record, Black Braid 3. Lamp of Murmuur, one day before the tour, announced their new album, The Dreaming Prince in Ecstasy. Oh, and I should mention that Lamp of Murmuur and Black Braid have the same live backing band, but both are like sort of one member, technically. And the new single is 9 minutes long. It's called Farce of Hallucinations, and it's sick.
Super bummed that tour hits New York the same night as CBGB Fest, which I am going to, which is next weekend.
And the same night that Doechii headlines All Things Go. It's a very highly competitive night. Before we wrap up, I'll give quick shout outs to just a few more songs. Radioactivity, cult catchy punk band, poppy punk but not pop punk, Cult Heroes, announced their first album in 10 years, Time Will Bring Me Down, and the title track is classic Radioactivity. Thundercat has a new double single out, and Irish band Cardinals, who are sort of like 90s indie alt rock with a little bit of Celtic influence, bagpipes, that kind of stuff, announced their debut record, and 2 singles are out. One's been out, one just came out, and I think they're really cool. But what else happened this week, Dave?
Well, we already knew Refused were breaking up. Now, all 4 members of Refused have announced that they're starting a new band that isn't called Refused. Madonna is also back with an announcement that she is returning to dance music for her first album in 7 years, which is due in 2026 via Warner. Firefest has been bought by LimeWire. Yes, really, no comment there. Chappell Roan, who is about to play a bunch of shows here at Forest Hills Stadium in Queens, where she was supposed to play for the aforementioned All Things Go Festival last year, but canceled last minute, has announced openers for those shows and other dates on her tour, including, interestingly, Japanese Breakfast, Hemlock Springs, and Baby Tate, varying by date. Ozzy Osbourne's triumphant farewell continues. The trailer is out for an upcoming Paramount Plus documentary called Ozzy, No Escape From Now. It was filmed during his final years, and the trailer includes footage and commentary of his massive final show, along with interviews of members of Guns N' Roses, Metallica, other members of Black Sabbath, Smashing Pumpkins, and more. Looks great. This week in David Byrne, in our ongoing series, he has been announced on the Coachella lineup, as we mentioned last week. He played less than a week. He played Psycho Killer for the first time in 19 years. We posted that video on the Brooklyn Vegan Instagram. Go check that out. American Utopia is joining the Criterion Collection, and it has been revealed that David is on the deluxe edition of Miley Cyrus's Something Beautiful, which also, by the way, includes a song with Lindsey Buckingham and Mick Fleetwood. So it's been a lot going on for David Byrne lately. Speaking of the Criterion Collection, Pee-wee's Big Adventure is also getting a Blu-ray edition coming soon. This week in Beatles, Jack White, who also plays CBGB Festival next week and is on the lineup of
Riot Fest,
just joined Ringo Starr on With a Little Help from My Friends at Bourbon and Beyond. Is that a Danny Wimmer Fest?
I don't remember.
While Paul McCartney, meanwhile, has announced an intimate Santa Barbara Bowl show happening next week. Good luck getting in there. Hopefully you already got your ticket. And finally, presented with no further comment, Limp Bizkit has released a song called Making Love to Morgan Wallen. Go check out shop.brooklynvegan.com for our latest vinyl exclusives and everything else we have in there. And we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Dave and I will be back every Friday morning with new episodes of BV Weekly. And in between the episodes, you can always get much more from us at brooklynvegan.com, on all of our social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can pick up records from us at shop.brooklynvegan.com. And if you like what you hear, tell your friends about us, subscribe to the show, give us a good rating. All that little stuff goes a really long way. It really helps us a lot, and we really appreciate it. Thanks so much to Joe D'Agostino from Cymbals E Guitars and Empty Country for the great theme song. Our mix engineer, Nick Gray. Thank you again, and see you next time.